Welcome to, we just had the intersection of open source software and AI. Now we're going to look at cybersecurity and AI. And I have the great distinction of working with three CISOs from my peer agencies in the government. And let me introduce them to you, and I'll ask you to hold your applause to the end and welcome them all together. So Togai Andrews is a CISO of Bureau of Engraving and Printing in the U.S. Department of Treasury. He brings over 18 years of IT and cybersecurity leadership to the table, marked by his adept business-driven risk management and process improvements. Before his current role as Chief Information Security Officer at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, which he took in 2020, Togai served as a CISO for Federal Emergency Management Agency, my counterpart at DHS, transforming their cybersecurity program and boosting performance metrics. Come on up, Togai. Thanks. Karim Saeed, the CISO of Goddard Space Flight Center at NASA. He's a member of the cybersecurity community at NASA with an academic and professional background in software development and human-centered computing. Karim's current interests include breaking and building code. That's a good thing for a CISO to do, and teaching others how to do the same. The open source community, great. He probably enjoyed the last conversation, and then the lessons we can learn from doing that, and communicating effectively about cybersecurity risk. And last, rounding out our panel in alphabetical order, is Dr. Justin Ubert, who's the CISO of the Federal Transit Administration Department of Transportation. He is a seasoned cybersecurity and IT professional with over 11 years of experience in managing and leading enterprise-wide security across federal agencies. He's a recognized leader in implementing advanced information technology security strategies, including DevSecOps, cloud migrations, and zero trust, while ensuring compliance with federal mandates such as Executive Order 14028. Additionally to his leadership roles in cybersecurity, Justin serves as an adjunct professor at Marymount University, where he teaches in the College of Business Innovation, Leadership, and Technology. Now, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our panelists. So we have, first of all, welcome, gentlemen, and I am thrilled to have three CISOs from other federal agencies. This is going to be a great conversation, especially understanding how everybody is working the intersection of cybersecurity and AI. And before we get started, let me just say we have like 20-ish minutes, 25 minutes, and we've got a few questions. Oh my God, there's a huge bug up here. We have a few questions teed up. I don't think we're going to be able to take questions from the audience, but that's probably okay. We certainly can catch everybody in the hall on break. So I'm going to do one question, ask everybody to answer it, and then kind of circle back and kind of continue that way to explore what we hear from them. So gentlemen, for each of you, within the context of your respective agencies and fields, whether it's protecting financial integrity, advancing space exploration, or ensuring transit security, how does the unique mission of your agency shape your approach to cybersecurity and AI? And what approaches are your organizations taking to harness the benefits of generative AI specifically? And what kinds of best practices or cybersecurity policies are being implemented to ensure these systems remain secure, resilient, and aligned with government standards? Togai, may I start with you?
Sure. So I work for the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, and BEP is a manufacturing organization, and we produce, design and produce the U.S. Currency notes, right? That is trusted worldwide, and trust is key, right? Because that's the fundamental reason why our currency is used worldwide. It's because people trust it, right? And so incorporating or trying to take advantage of new technology within BEP, for example, Gen AI, we are very cautious and we are intentionally moving as slow as we possibly can so that we can really think through how AI can be used, or Gen AI specifically can be used in our whole smart factory or smart manufacturing approach or methodology. Now, on the support side of our mission, rather than the mission itself, like a general IT, we do see a lot of benefits. And we are looking at how we can incorporate Gen AI specifically within knowledge management, for example, right? And in my organization, my office in cybersecurity, that's the proof of concept that I really want to bring to the table. Is how can I take all of my policies and procedures and SOPs and feed that into a LLM and allow users to query and prompt and get response. Because a lot of the questions that my team have to respond to today, I think can be at the fingertip of our users rather than sending an email or calling. Well, hey, I want to go to Mexico, but I really want to take my laptop. Can I? For example, right? Those are things that can be done through, I think, through a Gen AI model. Right? So I think that's the benefit that I see specifically within cybersecurity within my office.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So I work at NASA. NASA is a space and earth science agency. So I think anytime a new sea change technology kind of comes to us, my initial reaction is, okay, as a member of the mission support directorate within the OCIO, I'm going to have the least compelling use cases here. It's the scientists and engineers who work at the agency that are going to be coming up with the really smart ideas. So when it comes to generative AI, I think the thing about my agency that was formative to my perception of how we were going to use it is we have to be a yes and organization. It has to be a let's improvise towards a secure solution for the folks that are coming up with truly compelling use cases. Because otherwise, I'm just standing in the way of science and exploration, which is not my goal. It's actually the exact opposite. So I would say that's kind of the formative thing. And that's maybe partially unique to an agency like NASA, where the priority is on science and exploration.
So as someone who used to work in a CIO shop and now works in an S&T shop, I think that's a great answer. Thanks. Justin, how about you?
So I have the most compelling use cases with transit data. Yeah, I can see it's thrilling. Seriously though, a lot of what Kareem just said actually is echoed by my agency. We are looking at, we produce a lot of grants. We do a lot of research with industry. So the most compelling use cases that we're hearing about and that people are asking for are public-private partnership type things where we're studying maybe low-density areas of service and whether we should put more grant money to a certain area, for instance, or injuries and folks getting, in bad mental states on tracks. How can we help prevent that? Is there ways to look at that and use Gen AI to pull in some of that data and do things like that? Those are really interesting. Just like Kareem said, we look at trying to temper this, but not get in the way of allowing these use cases to move forward, which is difficult because the way that the executive order on AI came out, we have to have a very specific set of checklist functions that we have to look for, security, privacy, transparency. And those are things that are still being worked through in the industry with the general models that are out there. Agentic AI is helping us kind of tackle some of that faster, but we really are having to balance this out. And our use cases that we see generally from an internal perspective, so my direct users, are the things everybody wants to do, right? They want to summarize an email, they want to get some notes, they want to have note taking, they want to get the drudgery out of their lives so they can focus on tasks. This can be problematic because if we don't have our own chatbot or ChatGPT that's within our enclave and it's not passing, we make sure it's not passing that data out. How can we afford to give them this if we don't have it where it's got the safeguards? But we also have to balance the risk of they're going to use it anyway, and it's impossible to block. For every time I can block a call to ChatGPT, I've got 45 APIs embedded on other sites that they can call in. So this is a sticky problem, and we have to balance speed of adoption with guardrails that are mandated by the federal government. So,
Thank you, Justin. So let's look at sort of the flip side of that question now. And instead of considering, the Gen AI use cases that operators or S&T World brings to the CISO, let's think about how does the CISO or can a CISO use Gen AI to strengthen cybersecurity defenses? And that might be a little less mature, I'm not sure, but I'm really interested in the kinds of things that your organizations are doing in identifying, mitigating, or responding to cyber threats using Gen AI. Togai, may I start with you?
Yeah, I think there's two rare areas where, as a CISO, I see Gen AI benefiting my program. And I talked about one previously, knowledge management, right? And the second one is really around threat analysis and data analysis. Today, I need to have a data scientist and a data analyst feeding me dashboards on where we are with our annual cybersecurity awareness training, or where we are with the time it takes to detect a threat in our environment, right? Someone has to go and figure that out and come back and give me a report every week. Well, what if I could just sit at my desk and where are we with the mean time of detection today and get a response, right? Real-time data that can feed risk-based decisions is important, and I think Gen AI can provide that. But we have to do it in a responsible and safe way. And I think that's what I'm trying to figure out myself.
Thanks, Togai. A good answer. I didn't realize that the knowledge management program was yours, so I thought you were supporting that through somebody else. So Kareem, same question. How can you use it, or are you using it now at NASA and Goddard Space Flight Center to improve cyber defenses?
Yeah, so we are kind of exploring a number of kind of use cases that are potentially benefited by something like generative AI or that general class of technology. But those are really exploratory. A lot of these programs are nascent at the moment. I would say that, like, in terms of bandying around compelling use cases within the OCIO, as compelling as those can be, we definitely have some ideas around just like making training more interesting and more engaging, making the QA process of how somebody works through an ATO more engaging and transparent, because the NLP that underlies a lot of these technology stacks is impressive, and it makes for an engaging conversation partner about some of this stuff. Over the years, we've built an enormous and kind of dense corpus of policy documentation around cybersecurity, and even just something as simple as getting an NLP generative AI kind of working over that corpus and providing people with easy answers. Yeah, it's that sort of thing. Now, if we take a step back and we think about like the statistical models and the transformer models that underlie these generative AIs, then you get maybe kind of sexier use cases that kind of start to emerge. Things like superpowering things like ABA, which is an acronym that maybe people have forgotten, right? Automated behavior analysis, and doing things like that dynamically and with the like superpower of a generative AI. Like those become kind of the more compelling things, but that's where it's really most nascent at the moment. So.
Yeah, more great examples. Thank you. Good luck with those. Justin, what about you and DOT?
Yeah, so we, at the Federal Transit Agency, we partner with the headquarters for shared cyber services and things like that. So when we look at AI generally, AI has been in a lot of tools for a long time for cyber, right? We've got data analysis and various heuristics that are looking at logging data and various other data streams to see what's being teased out. But what we're really interested in now, right, is Gen AI. How can this help? I think we're going to talk in another question about, working with CDOs and stuff, but, we have data silo problems generally, I think, and to be able to use some of these more exploratory use cases like Kareem was talking about, we really need to break down those silos and get the data, meshed together in a lake or something, good governance, good tagging, et cetera. We'll talk later. But because of those issues right now, we can't even really explore deeply. So what we're really doing is looking at, similarly, use cases that we can pre-position. One of the more intriguing ones I'd seen recently was, adding our incident response playbooks to a Gen AI. When a ticket's generated, The AI goes through the playbook, and then a human in the loop comes and reviews everything, and you can close out a ticket that might have taken 45 minutes to 2 hours in 5 to 10 minutes, as long as you've got the human in the loop. So there's a lot of cool things we can see coming down the pipe, but right now, when we really look at the overall landscape, adoption is difficult simply because we need to have the right processes in place from a data perspective in order to utilize these tools. So very exploratory.
Terrific. Thanks, Justin. I think we're going to stick with you and move back the other direction now. And I want to talk a little bit about all the interfaces you've got in the CIO shop or S&T or wherever they come from. Different organizations are organized differently. And a couple of officers that are relevant to today's discussion, aside from the CISO or CISO, whichever you prefer, would be the Chief AI Officer, which came out, in the EO last year, and then also the Chief Data Officer. So I'm very curious as to how you organize at a DOT in terms of, how do you interface with those organizations? How do they interface with each other? Where are you all, located? Who's your oversight? That kind of thing.
Thank you. So for Department of Transportation, we've got Dan Morgan, who's the CDO, Chief Data Officer at the department. I partner with him heavily. I talk to him all the time about cyber and how we look at data. We've also recently gotten in federal transit, we've stood up an office of CDO. So locally, we're going to have somebody that will interface more directly with that, department level CDO to partner up and really do some of the things I just talked about, breaking down the data silos, getting better data governance in place. The Chief AI Officer right now at DOT is still vacant. They're looking to hire soon. Right now, we've got the estimable Dr. Mike Horton, who is the acting CIO, and he is Dan Morgan's deputy. And so we talk constantly with all these folks and look at things from the cyber perspective. I'm interested in finding out ways I can operationalize my data. And then the other bit that I think goes under the radar is I see cyber as an enabler. I don't want it to be a cost center. I don't want it to be a block. I want to find ways to reduce risk. So if I look at it from that perspective, when I'm asking about how I can break down silos for my cyber data and get that in a place where I can operationalize it, discover it and all that, I also want to take that and look at my users' data and my organization's data holistically and see if we can take those lessons learned and do this as a whole of organization movement, because that allows all of us to benefit from these initiatives. So, I talk about it from my perspective when I'm working with my CDO at the agency or headquarters level and as the CAIO as well. But I'm almost always talking about it, I would say, here's the cyber lens, now how can we apply it broadly? So that's sort of how we work holistically and try to get this going.
Terrific. Thank you. Kareem?
Yeah, so our agency nominated David Salvanini as the Chief AI Officer, who was also our Chief Data Officer. So he's kind of serving in both roles at the same time. And just for a moment, reflect on the fact that it's a space agency and we've elected somebody named Dave to handle the AI problem. So the Space Odyssey references are all over the place. But I think the reason that we leaned in that direction was to a point you made earlier, which is that really enabling the use of generative AI in compelling ways requires that we break down some of these existing data silos, which has been Dave's mission since he took on the CDO role, right? So it's a tricky problem. It's a sticky problem. And it's kind of the primary hurdle to really effectively using these new technologies. So we're hoping that, by having the CDO in that position as the lead champion for AI, we can maybe solve both at the same time, or at least work our way in the right direction.
Okay, terrific. Thanks. Togai?
Yeah. So our existing chief data officer is also our AI officer, similar to NASA, right? And we all fall within the office of the CIO. So that really allow us to align a lot better than if that chief data officer or AI officer was within a different office. So, and literally we sit next door to each other. So I'm always talking to him. I'm always knocking on his door. When are you going to give me my knowledge management solution. And then you always ask back, when am I going to get my ATO? But we have a really good relationship, and I think in any organization that is looking to incorporate these new technologies, having the relationships amongst the stakeholders is very important in really bringing that technology to go live. So, yeah.
Terrific, thanks. How are we doing on time? Have we got one more lightning round to go? Okay, so let's build on that concept. And let me ask you each, between those three organizations, right, CISO, CAIO, and CDO, how are you working together to look at adversarial attacks, right? AI security above and beyond cybersecurity. Who's responsible? Who's doing the thinking about how you're going to organize what needs to be done? Coming up with the use cases, looking at all the different kinds of attacks that are available, and looking at those across mission sets. Togai?
So Marcus, who is our CDO, his office and his team are the one responsible for coming up with the use cases for Gen AI, right? And as they develop these use cases, my office take a look at those use cases and try to figure out, okay, what risks do we have to factor in based on this use case, right? Because Gen AI, as every new technology, we do not need a whole new way or means to manage risks, right? We just need overlays for those new risks that the new technology bring to bear. And so the collaboration between both offices, my office and the CDO office, is very strong. And I think when we do get our first proof of concept in place, it will be a success because of the collaboration between the both groups.
Kareem?
Yeah, so to answer the question directly, it's primarily the cybersecurity office, which is why I'm on Dave's team, a core member of the chief AI officer's team. And to Togai's point, right, we don't have to rebuild these things from scratch. So if you're in the federal government, you're familiar with NIST and all of the special publications that they publish, and you're familiar with 837, the risk management framework, it scales. And it does accommodate for these new novel technologies if it's applied diligently. So I think that's been my primary function, is just showing up at these meetings and being like, hey, are we applying the framework diligently? Let's take a moment. Let's think about it. Let's figure out what data we're implicating. Let's figure out what controls apply. Let's figure out how we can assess those properly. Let's move towards an authorization that we can all feel comfortable with. I think that point can't be overemphasized, is that the frameworks exist, they scale, and thank goodness for NIST for being such a solid partner in the whole thing.
Okay, Justin, you want to take it home?
Sure. My colleagues have said most of the things I was going to say in terms of how we approach, right? NIST RMF for AI. I also want to add in the OWASP LLM Top 10. It's a great resource. It helps you conceptualize what's going on. So right now, most of our use cases are internal and agentic, which means that we can look at things and spin up a service. We have some confidence that our data is within our tenant, so it's not being used to train models and go out, which is one of my big fears, is protection of our data. But I want to say internal and still in proof of concept type stage. So right now, mostly what we're doing is we're looking at how we can operationalize security through existing means. We protect the pipelines. We use processes we've already got in place. What I'm also looking at is, when we start pushing these public facing, or they could be interacted with, we got to worry about rate limiting, right? So that somebody doesn't just give us a DDoS or just burn up cache by hitting the agent over and over with a bot because they don't like transit. We got to look at red teaming to ensure that there's not bad outputs, right? So we have to walk through that and come up with a framework, which, Microsoft's got Pirate, there's Gandalf, so I can upskill my team and figure out how to use Pirate versus Gandalf and get some training. We can do all these types of things, but we do have to add to what we already use, especially once we start looking at pushing it out, because we have reputational requirements in terms of the government, right? We want to make sure what we put out is factual, good, and has high integrity. And then we also want to make sure we're not violating privacy. So we have to look at all these things. And the way we do that is we need to push, to me, red teaming and attacking the model to make sure that we have good guardrails, they're not easily slipped, and we have really good outputs. So those are the things that I'm looking at adding on top of what my colleagues have already talked about. And I think
Terrific. Yeah, that's a good note
Took it
to
home.
end on. Excuse me. Gentlemen, thank you for sharing your expertise. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please help me in thanking our panelists?